Often titled the father of comedy, Aristophanes is the oldest surviving comedic playwright. As profound as vulgar, his plays reveal ancient Athenian values, ideology, and controversies. Jeering at and referencing sex, gender, religion, politicians, history, other playwrights, and morality, he is now, perhaps, even more irreverent and funny than ever before. Aristophanes' plays, Acharnians. The play begins with the hero, Dikaiopolis, waiting at the hill of the Nix for the assembly to start. As he waits, he makes various jocular commentaries on Athenian society and citizens. Eventually, people begin to come in as he said they would, all jostling for a front row seat. When the crier asks who wishes to speak, a certain Amphitheus steps up and claims the gods have given him the natural right to barter his own peace with the Spartans. The crier responds by ordering his arrest, and Dikaiopolis attempts to defend him. Before the man is dragged away, the crier announces that the ambassadors sent to barter with the Persian king have just arrived, and that they must be allowed to speak first. These ambassadors bring with them the king's representatives. The hero complains about them and calls the whole enterprise a waste of money. At first, these ambassadors claim that the Persian king wishes to help them in the war against Sparta, but when the king's representatives are asked directly, they answer,
"Getting gold, no Greeks assholes."
So, it happens that Dikaiopolis asks Amphitheus to negotiate a private peace with the Spartans for him, his siblings, and his wife. Amphitheus leaves to do so, and in the meantime, a convoy of Thracians proposing themselves as mercenaries arrive. This turns out to be a rather inconsequential time filler, but there's a curious joke about circumcision as Dikaiopolis lifts up one of the mercenaries' kilts and asks,
"Don't tell me these men are Otomantians. Who's been docking their cocks?"
The assembly dissolves and Amphitheus arrives bringing loads of truces. However, he cannot stay as he is chased by a chorus of Acharnians' war veterans. It may be found in Thucydides' Histories, a work I have also written about, that the term Acharnians refers to one of Athens' demes. These were not only voting blocks, but also geographic areas of Attica, thus akin to a state in the contemporary United States. The chorus is composed of these angry old men. They complain that such private truces are an unpatriotic betrayal. As the old men are searching for who has made a private truce, Dikaiopolis comes out of his house with his wife and daughter as if engaging in a religious ritual. He mentions some things about his family that I will not elaborate. Perhaps merely because it is comical, he behaves and speaks as if he were a wise prophet. Because it is so jocular, I am obliged to quote,
"It's infinitely nicer to grab a young girl in the bud as she is collecting wood, that Thracian wench perhaps, from the back of beyond, to squeeze her by the middle, throw her to the ground and crack her kernel.
It's him, the man. It's him, stone him. Stone him, stone him, stone him. Give it to him thick and thin. Got a stone there, got a stone."
Great Heracles! What's going on? You'll break my pot.
It's you will break, you horrid deadhead.
You venerable daughters, for what?
What a question to ask, you filthy rat, you cursed betrayer of your people. The only one in our midst to settle a separate peace, you dare look me in the face.
Oughtn't you first to know my reasons? Listen.
Listen to you. You're finished, and will flatten you under heaps of stone.
Not before you've heard me. Please, forbear. Good people, I appeal.
Dikaiopolis claims that in many ways it is the Spartan who are the injured party. If he is allowed to speak, he can prove it, and that if they are not convinced by his words, he will let them kill him. Since they won't let him have his word, he threatens them with doing harm to their most precious love. He runs into the house and comes back holding a knife against a basket of charcoal. They beg him to not harm the coal, they agree to let him speak, and he begins by saying,
"I know the way country folk respond. How easy it is to con them with flattery of themselves or of their city, whether true or not and however shitty, of which they're completely unaware. I know too how the old ones think and want to sting by how they vote. And I know how I got stung last year by Cleon because of my comedy."
It turns out that though this is Aristophanes' earliest surviving play, the previous year he had made one wherein he made fun of a most famed, or infamous, politician named Cleon. This politician responded by suing him and did so again after this play. Returning to the play, the chorus complains that Dikaiopolis is simply delaying. Thus, for some reason, the hero calls on Euripides to help him. They knock on the playwright door, and a clever enough remark is made when the servant answers claiming that the writer is not home.
His mind's outside collecting verses, so his mind's not in, but the man himself is inside, though in the air, working on tragedies.
Dikaiopolis insists that the servant call out Euripides. When he does come out, then ensues a jocular sequence wherein the comedian asks, with all humility, for one thing after another. He asks him for everything needed for dressing up and pretending to be a street beggar. Each item, such as a pair of beggarly rags, is referenced or associated with a particular play of Euripides. Thus, the joke is not only the way he asks for one thing after another, in each case claiming that to be the last thing he will ask for, but all the erudite references. This section, as with several other sections of some of Aristophanes' other plays, I believe gives credence or reason for believing that the literacy rates in ancient Athens were abnormally high and unrivaled until the modern age. Going back to the story, the hero continues his speech, and he begins as follows.
Friends, I trust that none of you spectators will think ill of me dressed up as a beggar and having the nerve to address the Athenian people in a comedy, but even comedy writers can tell the truth, and truth that I'll relate is shocking, but it is the truth.
He then goes into a digression about how Cleon does not have the right to accuse him of defaming the city because at this particular time there are no foreigners present. Then he seems to protect himself from the accusation of casting an universal condemnation.
Some of our own people here. I'm not saying the city. Please remember that. I do not say the city, but a gang of spurious, obnoxious hooligans who kept denouncing the Megarians for importing jackets without paying the tax.
As is explained by Erasmus's The Praise of Folly, a work I have also written about, criticizing unspecified people is ever appropriate and celebrated, but to make clear the individuals is most dangerous. Dikaiopolis, or Aristophanes, then provides his own comical explanation for why the war began in the first place.
And then a bunch of tipsy cheese throwing Yobs rollicks off to Megara and grabs Samitha the courtesan. Then you Megarians, to even the odds, with garlic in your blood, abduct 2 of Aspasia's tarts. So all it takes to be the cause of plunging the whole of Hellas into wars are 3 whores.
Many believe this is a joke on Herodotus' histories, as the historian ever claims that wars are due to lust and romantic envy. Most worthy of explanation here is that Aspasia was the last woman of Pericles, who may or may not have previously been with Socrates, the philosopher. I do not know if it is a fact that she ran a brothel, but she definitely gathered a lot of people at her establishment for one reason or another. Either way, the comedian goes on to explain that the Megarians were forced to ask for the Spartans' help in restituting their consort, and the Spartans asked nicely for the Athenians to cooperate. But alas, too many in Athens were hungry for glory, fame, and adventure. Once he concludes, the chorus splits into 2 groups. The first leader denounces him as a villain, and the second changes his mind and claims that he is in fact absolutely correct about everything. A fight almost breaks out, but the then famous general, Lamachus, arrives to keep the peace. Both, the leader of the first group and Dikaiopolis, try to appeal to Lamachus. A joke ensues wherein the hero is nauseated by the military paraphernalia worn by the general, such as his shield with the head of Medusa and the feathers on his helmet. I reckon the joke here is a bit of self-depreciating humor. Such as in contemporary times, a leftist Hollywood movie will use hyperbole towards hippie, tree-hugging, vegan stereotypes, and things of that nature. Soon enough, the comedian gets into an argument with Lamachus when the former accuses the latter of taking pay, of making a generous living, while there are poor, old, gray-bearded men fighting in the ranks. The end of the discussion is noteworthy.
Yes, and all drawing pay, whereas the rest of you, wherever you are, never get any. Tell me, Emberson, graybeard though you are, Have you ever served on embassies? What? Never? Never, he says, though he's steady and able-bodied. And you, Barbecue, Fatherbird, and Oaken-hearted, has any one of you had a glimpse of Ecbatana or the natives of Chaunia? What? Never? But Koisira's son has, and so has Lamachus, despite the fact that only yesterday, because of their unpaid bills and dues, their friends were advising them to keep out of reach, as if they had to dodge slops from open windows.
Democracy, democracy, this is too much.
Not as long as Lamachus gets his pay.
That's it then. I'll damn well go after Spartans with ships and men, might and main.
And I, for my part, announce free trade between me and all Spartans, Megarians, and Boeotians, but not Lamachus.
The argument is as old as democracy. In war, wealth inequality is not only accentuated, but it is also more easily transformed into political or social inequality. This critique might easily be taken by many as proof that Athenian-style democracy is flawed, yet I believe the reverse is true. Not only does Aristophanes openly criticize the war and the generals during the middle of the war, which is unheard of in modern so-called democracies, but Lamachus' defense puts to shame any defense of modern commanders in modern democracies. After all, these may still be profiteering from the war, yet Lamachus and his peers had to earn that position of power through something that, even in the most contrary of interpretations, is still most merit-worthy than their modern counterparts. Meaning, the generals of ancient democracies had to depend on their charisma to continue profiteering, while the modern are the byproduct of nepotism and pre-existing wealth inequality. Dikaiopolis also leaves, and the leader of the chorus chants a long eulogy explaining how the people were, or are, manipulated by nationalistic pride and vainglory into abstaining from peace, and imploring the defense of Aristophanes, and I guess indirectly those like him, who are a just and righteous source of pride in the city. Yes, Aristophanes praises himself as such. Let me quote.
Immediately next, which of the sides had the poet most fiercely reviled? For they'd be the ones to be kept on their toes and succeed in the war, because of him. And this is the reason the Spartans offer you terms of peace, demanding, however, the return of Aegina. Not that they really care a damn for Aegina, but only because they want the poet. So listen, I beg you. Don't let him go, for he means to continue concocting his comedies about what is right.
Aristophanes apparently had a house and might have been born in the small island of Aegina. When acting resumes, Dikaiopolis exits his house and marks an area on the ground inside which all may trade, even if they are Megarian or Boeotian. Yes, everyone may trade, except Lamachus. The first merchant to arrive makes a rather peculiar joke, meaning perhaps distasteful. It is an impoverished and starving Megarian with his 2 daughters of about 8 years old. This man asks his daughters if they rather starve or be put up for sale. They in turn answer unanimously,
"Up for sale, up for sale."
The father disguises them as piglets with little fake snouts and puts them inside a sack. When the comedian sees them, he says they do not look like pigs. The Megarian insists and says to the audience,
"Can you beat it? The disbelieving jerk. He says this ain't a little pork. Tell you what, I bet you're some time-scented salt this ass a real piglet." In the Greek sense of the word.
I do not know what to make of this joke. What is the Greek sense of the word piglet? Are they so now? Will they be so? Or do they come from so? The Megarian, as basically all foreigners, are supposed to speak in bad Greek, or at least a less cultured dialect. Dikaiopolis asks the disguised girls to grunt like pigs, which they do. I assume this is supposed to be cute. Yet, at the end, all pretensions of modesty are surely lost, as the hero says.
Seems like a piggy now, but in a while, once grown up, it'll be a cunt.
And the Megarian answers,
You can be sure o' that. She'll be just like her mother.
The hero buys them, and when he offers them food, the girls cheerfully squeal like pigs. The Megarian, happy with the trade, which was for some garlic and salt, says he might sell his wife and mother. I reckon the aforementioned scene could be interpreted in one of 2 ways. First, as a mockery of the enemy's condition, one meant to alleviate and assuage the Athenians' own perception of their own struggle. There has certainly been much of this kind of comedy in the modern era, however usually under the direction and auspices of the warmongering or exploitative parties. The other is a dark and visceral way to point out the inhumanities and atrocities of war. I would like to believe that it is the latter. One may imagine that it has to of course be the latter, yet this play was voted first prize in the mid of the very war it criticizes. Something like that is unheard of in modern or any time. Going back to the story, an informer arrives and accuses the piglets and the Megarian as illegals, but the hero scares him off. The father says goodbye to his daughters and Dikaiopolis brings them into his house. Next, a Boeotian from Thebes arrives with a lot of diverse merchandise. Several comments are made which I assume bring about reminiscence of bygone peaceful market exchanges and trade. The Boeotian asks, what does Athens has that Thebes does not? After thinking for a moment, Dikaiopolis says Athens has informers by the bushel. Just then an informer, Nicarchus, comes in the scene. This character proposes to accuse the Boeotian. When the hero tries to defend him by pointing out that he is merely selling candle lamp wick, Nicarchus alludes to a real-life event described by Thucydides, arguing that such a thing may be used to burn down the docks. Long story made short, Dikaiopolis bags Nicarchus and sells him to the Boeotian as merchandise. The chorus sings as the scenery is changed. This one introduces, by way of exalting Dikaiopolis' gains, the next reoccurring theme of the play, the palpable benefits peace has over war. When acting returns, the inside of the comedian's house is revealed wherein he, his family, and his servants are getting ready for a banquet celebrating a feast honoring, I reckon, Dionysus. It thus happens that as they enjoy their feast, various characters show up sequentially begging Dikaiopolis to share a bit of the truce with them. First, a farmer who has lost his oxen to the Boeotians, but Dikaiopolis refuses to help him. The chorus explains that the man who has unearthed a prize naturally wants to keep it to himself. Lastly, a best man of a wedding arrives who wishes not to be called up on campaign so that he may enjoy his honeymoon. The following joke ensues.
Really? What sort of message? Dear gods, that's a laugh. She wants a pledge that her husband's cock be kept from the draught and on the hearth. Bring the truce here. I'm going to give her a spoonful, and only to her. She's a poor female and oughtn't to suffer because of war. Hey, my girl, hold the vase up. Do you know the procedure? Tell the bride that when there's a call-up, she's to massage your dick with this.
Then a messenger arrives and knocks on Lamachus' door, telling him that troops have been ordered to guard a mountain post in the middle of a snow blizzard. He curses as he will not be able to enjoy the rest of the pot and pitcher festival. Another messenger arrives to tell Dikaiopolis that he is summoned to a joyful dinner ordered by the priest of Dionysus, in which there will be all sorts of luxuries, pleasures, and the like. Lamachus groans in envy and the comedian scolds him. Then they begin to shout out one after the other the various things they are getting ready. For example,
How beautiful is an ostrich plume, its white fluff.
How beautiful is pigeon meat. It's brown stuff.
Hand me, boy, my chainmail corslet.
And me, boy, my corslet flagon.
With it I can face the foe.
With it I can face fellow boozers off the wagon.
there are about 10 or 15 of these. They each leave in different directions, and the leader of the chorus sings to them.
Success to you both in your enterprise. How different are the path you tread. He'll be garlanded and drink full measure. You'll be on guard and you will freeze. He'll be in bed with a lovely girl full of surprise and teasing a throbbing prick under pressure.
Then the chorus as a whole sings some more, but it should be clear what the general message of the song is. In the end, a third messenger arrives on the scene to proclaim that Lamachus needs help as he has been badly injured. Curiously enough, not by an enemy in an actual fight, but in the process of jumping a trench. This is the equivalent of a modern-day movie showing the most common, which is likewise most inglorious, form of injury a soldier may suffer in modern warfare, a bomb or shell explosion far away from any actual enemy. Lamachus, limping on crutches, claims that worse than his pain would be for Dikaiopolis to see him as he now is. No sooner said than done. The latter walks into the scene half-drunk with a dancing girl by each of his sides. Perhaps the last joke of the play, outstandingly that this would be approved in time of war and win first prize.
Coddle this leg of mine, my friends. I'm lame.
And you two girls, coddle my thick cock.
My head whirls. Struck with a stone. Swimming in the dark.
I, too, am ready for bed, and stiff as a pole and dying to fuck in the dark.
The last words are to Dikaiopolis as Lamachus is carried away. He thanks the spectators and says goodnight to them. Now, to pique your curiosity, to motivate you to watch the last video of the series, I gift you a teaser sample of the many aphorisms I crafted as I read this author.
Folly repeats because people are only interested in learning profitable discoveries.
If you enjoy or gain from my aphorisms, know that I have thousands. I will be writing books with short thematic essays composed out of aphorisms. These essays are profound and intriguing yet easy to read. For very cheap copies, look up Protagoras Pause in the Amazon website. I repeat, Protagoras Pause, that's my name.